Mayon Volcano's 40-day eruption is not stopping. And what is happening right now on the Philippines' most dangerous volcano has scientists more alarmed than at any point in the last 15 years. 80,000 people have fled their homes. Entire villages sit empty beneath a mountain that refuses to go quiet. And the numbers coming out of Mayon are breaking records that have stood for over a decade. 5,503 tons of sulfur dioxide per day are pouring out of the crater every single day. That is not normal volcanic activity. That is the highest reading in 15 years. And here is what that actually means. Massive amounts of fresh magma are surging toward the surface right now, not slowing down, not running out, building. But here is what has volcanologists in complete panic. The last time Mayon released this much sulfur dioxide, it was the warning sign before a catastrophic eruption. The same gas, the same patterns, the same deadly buildup that buried entire towns in the past. Scientists are watching the same warning signs repeat, and the lava dome at the summit keeps growing more unstable with each passing hour. Is Mayon's 40-day nightmare finally reaching its peak? Or is this the calm before an eruption that could devastate the entire Baikal region? As of February 14, 2026, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology maintains Alert Level 3 over Mount Mayon. The classification remains unchanged since January 6th. High probability of hazardous eruption. 40 days and counting. The numbers tell a story of relentless escalation. Monitoring stations recorded 847 rockfall events in the past 24 hours alone. Pyroclastic density currents continue racing down the volcano's flanks at rates that exceed anything documented during the 2023 crisis. The lava dome at Mayon's summit has grown to an estimated 3.2 million cubic meters of unstable volcanic material perched 2,462 meters above sea level. Ground deformation data confirms what scientists feared most. GPS measurements and electronic tilt meters show the volcano's edifice has been inflating continuously since June 2024. The eastern and southeastern sectors display the most pronounced swelling. Magma pressure is not decreasing, it is building. Dr. Teresito Bacolcol, director of the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, addressed the sulfur dioxide readings during a press briefing on February 13th. The 5,503 tons per day measurement represents the highest emission rate recorded at Mayon in 15 years. Compare this to the 195 tons per day baseline measured in early January. That is a 28-fold increase in just over 5 weeks. The volcanic plume now rises 1,500 meters above the crater, drifting west-southwest across Albay province and into neighboring Sorsogon. Sulfur dioxide concentrations have triggered AIR quality warnings in 12 surrounding municipalities. Residents report the acrid smell of sulfur reaching communities over 20 kilometers from the summit. Seismic instruments detect an average of 47 volcanic earthquakes daily. Each tremor represents movement of magma and volcanic gases surging beneath the surface. The mountain is not resting. It is actively feeding fresh, molten rock toward the crater at rates that alarm scientists who have monitored Mayon for decades. The permanent danger zone remains strictly enforced at 6 kilometers. Extended danger zones now cover additional sectors where pyroclastic flows have traveled farthest. Military checkpoints prevent unauthorized entry. Armed personnel patrol the perimeter around the clock. The volcano operates under constant surveillance. But surveillance cannot stop what is coming. January 6, 2026, 1:20 p.m. local time. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology raises Mayon to Alert Level 3. Within hours, pyroclastic density currents begin generating from the collapsing lava dome, racing down Bonga Gully on the volcano's southeast flank. The crisis begins. By January 9th, monitoring stations record 100 pyroclastic density currents in a single 24-hour period. Scientists who have studied Mayon for decades describe the intensity as exceptional. First ashfall dusts the barangays of Busay and Daraga. Emergency evacuations displace 3,476 residents from villages within the 6-kilometer permanent danger zone. Week 2 brings no relief. activity intensifies rather than subsides. Sulfur dioxide emissions climb above the 195 tons per day baseline. Evacuation zones expand as pyroclastic flows travel farther down the mountain slopes. The pattern that should show declining activity instead shows acceleration. By week 3, ground deformation measurements reveal troubling data. GPS stations detect accelerating inflation in the volcano's eastern sectors. The danger zone extends beyond 6 kilometers in areas where pyroclastic currents have reached farthest. Evacuee numbers climb past 15,000. Week 4 shatters earlier projections. Displacement surges beyond 25,000 people. Emergency shelters strain against capacity limits. Sulfur dioxide crosses 1,000 tons per day. Scientists recognize a pattern fundamentally different from the 2023 eruption that lasted 6 months at alert level 3. Dr. Maria Antonia Bornas, Chief of Volcano Monitoring and Eruption Prediction, notes the critical distinction during a February briefing. The 2023 activity never produced sulfur dioxide readings approaching current levels. That eruption involved surface lava extrusion without the deep magma supply now feeding Mayon's crater. Weeks 5 and 6 bring the numbers that alarm the international volcanological community. Evacuee totals reach 80,000 displaced residents across multiple municipalities. Sulfur dioxide peaks at 5,503 tons per day, the highest reading in 15 years. Research institutions from Japan, the United States, and Europe request access to monitoring data. The critical unknown remains unchanged since day 1. Magma supply shows no indication of exhaustion. The deep reservoir continues feeding fresh, molten rock toward the surface. 40 days later, the volcano is not finished. Sulfur dioxide is the volcano's confession. When magma rises from deep chambers toward the surface, dissolved gases escape first. Sulfur dioxide concentration reveals exactly how much fresh molten rock is actively degassing beneath the crater. The higher the reading, the larger the magma supply feeding the eruption. On January 8th, instruments measured 195 tons per day. Elevated, but within expected parameters for alert level 3 activity. Scientists monitored the numbers carefully, but without alarm. 5 weeks later, the reading hits 5,503 tons per day, a 28-fold increase. The highest sulfur dioxide emission recorded at Mayon since 2011. That year, elevated sulfur dioxide preceded an eruption that forced evacuations lasting months and caused widespread agricultural devastation across Albay province. Dr. Teresito Bacolcol explains the implications during a February 12th briefing. Sustained emissions at this level indicate an open conduit system. Magma is not trapped beneath a sealed dome. It is actively circulating, degassing continuously, and being resupplied from reservoirs deep beneath the volcano. The mountain is not exhausting a finite batch of molten rock. Fresh magma keeps arriving. The health consequences spread across surrounding communities. Sulfur dioxide irritates respiratory systems, triggering asthma attacks and bronchial inflammation. Provincial health offices report 340% increase in respiratory complaints at clinics within 25 kilometers of the crater. Elderly residents and children face the highest risk. Air quality warnings now cover 12 municipalities. Volcanic smog, called VOG, forms when sulfur dioxide reacts with moisture and sunlight. The haze reduces visibility across Albay province and drifts into neighboring Sorsogon and Camarines-Sur. Farmers report leaf damage on crops exposed to acidic precipitation. Livestock show signs of stress. Water collection systems require additional filtration to remove sulfur contamination. 50LCS operates continuous sulfur dioxide monitoring through spectrometer stations positioned around the volcano's perimeter. Measurements occur multiple times daily. Data feeds directly to agency headquarters in Quezon City. Scientists watch for 2 critical signals. Declining emissions would suggest magma supply is exhausting. Sustained or increasing emissions indicate the deep reservoir remains active. 40 days into the crisis, the numbers keep climbing. The reservoir is not empty. The numbers represent families. 80,000 displaced residents, 19,847 families, 23 times the initial evacuation count from January 6th. Behind every statistic stands a person who watched their home disappear in the rearview mirror with no certainty of return. Rosa Martinez, 67, has survived 3 Mayon eruptions across 6 decades. She evacuated from Barangay Mabinit in Legazpi City on January 7th, carrying a plastic bag containing medications, her husband's death certificate, and a photograph of her children's baptism. 40 days later, she sleeps on a gymnasium floor in Tabaco City alongside 340 other evacuees. Her farm sits empty within the danger zone. Her carabao was evacuated to a temporary livestock facility 15 kilometers away. The shelters overflow. 13. Government-administered evacuation centers now house populations exceeding designed capacity by 200%. Tabaco City Sports Complex holds 2,100 residents in a facility built for 800. Families sleep on cardboard laid across concrete. Portable toilets serve ratios of 1 unit per 85 people. The smell of confined humanity mixes with sulfur drifting from the mountain. Children suffer the invisible wounds. 8-year-old Marco Dela Cruz has not attended school since January 6th. His mother reports nightmares about the volcano and refusal to sleep without lights. Provincial health officials document a 180% increase in pediatric anxiety cases at evacuation center medical stations. Counseling resources cannot meet demand. The economics are brutal. Farmers watch crops rot unharvested within the danger zone. Coconut plantations, abaca fields, and rice paddies representing generations of accumulated labor sit abandoned. The Albay Provincial Agriculture Office estimates 127 million pesos in crop losses during the first month alone. That number climbs daily. Governor Noel Rosal assures evacuees that relief supplies remain sustainable even for extended displacement. The Department of Social Welfare and Development has distributed 45,000 food packs. Water trucks service shelters twice daily. Medical teams rotate through facilities providing basic care. But sustainability is not the same as dignity. 40 days of displacement erodes hope with each passing sunrise. Families who built entire lives on Mayon's fertile slopes now wait in crowded gymnasiums. The volcano decides when they go home. Historical record haunts every scientist monitoring Mayon's current activity. In 1814, a catastrophic eruption buried the entire town of Cagzawa, killing approximately 1,200 people in minutes. The church bell tower remains visible today, protruding from volcanic debris as a memorial to that disaster. The 1897 eruption killed over 400. The 1984 event forced evacuations lasting months. Dr. Maria Antonia Bornas, Chief of Volcano Monitoring and Eruption Prediction at PIVOLCS, analyzes current data against these historical precedents. The comparison reveals disturbing parallels. Seismic signatures detected in the weeks before the 1984 eruption match patterns now appearing on monitoring instruments. Harmonic tremors that indicate sustained magma movement. Volcanic earthquakes clustering at shallow depths. Ground deformation accelerating in specific sectors. The lava dome presents the most immediate concern. Current estimates place the unstable mass at 3.2 million cubic meters. The 1984 dome reached 2.8 million cubic meters before catastrophic collapse generated pyroclastic flows that traveled 7 kilometers from the summit. Today's dome is already larger and still growing. International collaboration intensifies as data accumulates. The United States Geological Survey exchanges monitoring information through established protocols. Japanese volcanologists from the National Research Institute for Earth Science provide comparative analysis from their extensive Pacific Ring of Fire database. The consensus emerging from international consultation offers no reassurance. Volcanic explosivity index scenarios range from VEI2 to VEI4. A VEI2 event would produce localized pyroclastic flows within established danger zones. A VEI4 eruption would devastate the entire Bicol region, affecting populations across multiple provinces and potentially disrupting aviation throughout Southeast Asia. 5OLCS monitors specific indicators that would trigger Alert Level 4 or Alert Level 5. Rapid dome growth exceeding current rates. Escalating harmonic tremor intensity. Ground deformation accelerating beyond established thresholds. Any of these signals would indicate an imminent hazardous eruption requiring expanded evacuations. The honest limitation remains unchanged across 400 years of volcanic science. Researchers can track patterns and recognize dangerous trends, but they cannot predict the precise moment when accumulated pressure exceeds structural limits. The volcano keeps its own schedule. Science watches and waits alongside 80,000 displaced residents. The Philippine government operates at full crisis mobilization. The Department of National Defense has deployed 2,400 military personnel across Albay province. Army trucks transport evacuees from danger zone perimeters to shelter facilities. Helicopter assets remain positioned at Legazpi Airport for emergency extraction operations. Armed forces of the Philippines units patrol the 6-kilometer permanent danger zone, preventing unauthorized entry that could cost lives. Governor Noel Rosal coordinates daily briefings with provincial disaster risk reduction officers, municipal mayors, and barangay captains across affected areas. The command structure connects 47 local government units in a communication network operating 24 hours a day. Decisions that affect tens of thousands of residents flow through this coordination chain. The Department of Social Welfare and Development has released 89 million pesos in emergency assistance since January 6th. Field offices distribute family food packs, hygiene kits, and sleeping materials to evacuation centers across 6 municipalities. Mobile medical teams rotate through shelters, providing primary care and medication refills. Aviation authorities have modified flight paths for aircraft approaching Legazpi Airport. The 1,500-meter volcanic plume and drifting ash require pilots to maintain increased distance from the volcano's summit. Contingency plans exist for complete airport closure if eruption intensity escalates. The Department of Agriculture has declared a state of calamity for agricultural areas within the extended danger zone. Preliminary crop damage assessments exceed 180 million pesos. Livestock evacuation operations have relocated 3,400 cattle, carabao, and goats to temporary holding facilities outside affected areas. School suspension affects 47,000 students across 312 public and private schools within evacuation zones. The Department of Education has activated distance learning protocols, but internet connectivity in rural shelters remains inconsistent. Infrastructure preparations continue along established Lahars channels. The Department of Public Works and Highways has reinforced critical bridges and positioned heavy equipment for rapid debris clearing. Road networks require constant monitoring as ashfall accumulates. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs monitors the situation from Manila. International assistance protocols remain on standby pending a Philippine government request. The National Disaster Fund faces pressure as costs accumulate beyond initial projections. 40 days of sustained crisis strains resources designed for shorter emergencies. Scientists at 5OLCS model 3 possible trajectories for Mayon's ongoing eruption. Each scenario carries different implications for the 80,000 displaced residents waiting in evacuation shelters across Albay province. Scenario 1 offers cautious hope. Sulfur dioxide emissions gradually decline over coming weeks. The lava dome stabilizes through slow extrusion rather than catastrophic collapse. Activity decreases to levels permitting phased return of evacuees closest to danger zone boundaries. This pattern mirrors the 2023 eruption that maintained Alert Level 3 for 6 months before eventual de-escalation. Scenario 2 extends the crisis indefinitely. Current activity persists for 6 months or longer. Sulfur dioxide remains elevated. The dome continues growing without catastrophic failure. Evacuees face displacement measured in seasons rather than weeks. Economic devastation compounds as farms go untended and businesses remain shuttered. But widespread casualties are avoided through sustained evacuation enforcement. Scenario 3 represents the nightmare. Complete dome collapse in a single catastrophic event. Pyroclastic density currents. Exceeding temperatures of 1,000 degrees Celsius race down Mayon slopes at speeds surpassing 100 kilometers per hour. Anyone within 6 kilometers dies instantly. Warning time could be minutes or 0. The approaching rainy season introduces an additional threat. Accumulated volcanic debris transforms into lahars when monsoon rains arrive. These volcanic mudflows follow river channels downstream at tremendous velocity, threatening communities far beyond the permanent danger zone. Lahar risk persists for years after initial eruption activity subsides. Population density amplifies every historical precedent. When Mayon buried Kagsawa in 1814, the region supported a fraction of current inhabitants. Today, over 400,000 people live within 20 kilometers of the crater. A V4 eruption would affect populations across 3 provinces. Return timelines remain impossible to project. FIVOLCS requires sustained decline in seismic activity, ground deformation reversal, and sulfur dioxide reduction before recommending evacuation order modifications. None of these conditions currently exist. The historical pattern offers cold comfort. Mayon has erupted 54 times since 1616. Every eruption eventually ended. Communities rebuilt during quiet periods. Then the cycle began again. This eruption will end. The next one will come. The only question is what happens between now and then. 40 days, 80,000 displaced, 5,503 tons of sulfur dioxide escaping daily. The highest emissions in 15 years. Ground deformation continuing its relentless climb since June 2024. The lava dome growing more unstable with each passing hour. These are the numbers that define Mayon's ongoing crisis, and none of them show signs of declining. In evacuation shelters across Albay province, families wake each morning to the same uncertainty that greeted them the night before. Rosa Martinez checks her phone for PHIVOLCS updates before sunrise. Marco de la Cruz asks his mother when they can go home. Farmers calculate losses on crops they cannot harvest. Children forget what their bedrooms look like. The waiting erodes hope in increments too small to measure, but too constant to ignore. At monitoring stations positioned around the volcano's flanks, scientists watch data streams that never pause. Seismographs trace every tremor. GPS receivers measure every millimeter of ground movement. Spectrometers sample every ton of sulfur dioxide escaping the crater. The surveillance never sleeps, but surveillance cannot control what the mountain decides to do next. The impossible choice that has defined life on Mayon slopes for generations remains unchanged. The same volcanic soil that threatens death also sustains life. Farmers cannot simply relocate to safer ground because safer ground does not produce the yields that feed their families. Economic survival and physical survival occupy identical coordinates. The geography permits no compromise, yet communities endure. They have rebuilt after 54 documented eruptions across 4 centuries. They will rebuild again if given the chance. The resilience is not ignorance of danger. It is clear-eyed acceptance that this mountain is home, despite everything it threatens to take. Whether Mayon's dome collapses catastrophically tomorrow or continues slow extrusion for months remains unknown. The volcano operates on geological time, indifferent to human calendars, emergency plans, and the 80,000 people whose lives remain suspended in crowded gymnasiums. Science watches, families wait, the mountain decides. Above the northeastern Philippines tonight, the world's most perfectly shaped volcano glows red against the darkness. The incandescent dome pulses with heat visible from 30 kilometers away. Beautiful, deadly, patient. The same silhouette that draws tourists from around the world now serves as a warning beacon for the hundreds of thousands who live in its shadow. The eruption continues. The questions it raises have no answers yet, and the people of Albay wait for a mountain that keeps its own time.